What are your fears? What are you afraid of? And how can you get over those fears? What's going on, everybody? It's Kyle. I'm back with another YouTube video, and I really like this one because everyone talks about getting over your fears, and it's not as bad as you think it is. It's just an illusion. It's in your head. Just do it. But nobody really talks about how, and we all have different fears, different phobias, and they range differently to everybody of how bad they can be. So in this video, I'm not only talking about how your fears develop, but how to conquer them. So our fears develop in a very simple way through conditioning, where we're presented with a stimulus, we react badly to that stimulus, and now every single time it's presented to us, we have that same reaction, we try to avoid it. So that's what happens if you have a fear of dogs and you get bit by a dog, and every single time you're around a dog or you hear about a dog or see a dog, you have this rush of anxiety of, oh my God, like I don't like dogs. So now there are two different ways where we could approach getting over our fears. And the first way is it's called Vivo, where it's literally just do it.
Just do it!
So if you have this fear of dogs, then you literally just be in a setting with a dog and you don't leave until that fear has been eliminated. And the second way that we can get over our fears is through an imagery process, where we take a situation that gives us the least amount of anxiety to the highest amount of anxiety, and we gradually work our way up. So back to the example with the dog, we'd imagine a situation that gives us a low amount of anxiety, work until that fear has become smaller, and then work our way up to the highest level until that fear in the high level situation becomes smaller. Both these processes have advantages and disadvantages, and for the sake of this video, I'm going to use the fear of heights and social anxiety or social phobia as the examples to go through these processes. And personally, I have a fear of heights. So if you put me up 10 feet above the ground, I start shaking. I feel like I'm gonna die. So with me having a fear of heights, I would not choose the imagery process, because if I imagine myself 10 feet off the ground, having the anxiety, and then imagine myself 100 feet off the ground, trying to imagine that anxiety that I would have, it would not truly replicate the feeling and the actual emotion I would have in that situation. I would not truly be able to replicate the rush of anxiety and that actual terror I have if I was standing 100 feet in the air and then imagining it. I just won't be able to replicate that exact feeling. So if I wanted to get over my fear of heights, I would take the Vivo approach, where I would actually put myself in the situation of being 100 feet off the ground, experiencing the absolute amount of anxiety and terror that I would have until I would have to get over that fear, where I would be breathing, taking the situation in, and then it would result in a temporary extinction of my fear of heights. On the other hand, if you're someone with a social phobia, you have a fear of being in a big group of people, you would not take the Vivo approach, because if you throw someone in that situation in a social setting, that could further strengthen their fear of being in a group of people. They would instead take the imagery approach, where they imagine themselves in a small group of people, dealing with that anxiety, maybe talking to someone else, and then working their way up to a massive group of people where they feel isolated, and then they deal with that anxiety in that situation. Through the imagery approach, this will slowly help them subside their fear of being in the social setting. This will help the person have a more calm reaction to that fear, and then where they can visualize themselves actually maybe talking to someone, focusing on something else, and then this will help them slowly subside their fear, where they can work up from that small anxiety-provoking situation to the higher level of anxiety-provoking situation. Now, with the imagery process, it does not eliminate your fear. It just increases your ability to cope with your fear. The next step would be actually putting that person in these anxiety situations, starting from the least to the greatest, where they feel like now that they've been in this situation before. They've already went through it. They've already feel the relief of anxiety that they have. So they'll have a better ability to cope in that situation and then work themselves towards the extinction of it. And the goal for the Vivo process is to eliminate your fears by just jumping right into that fearful situation.
Just do it!
Like with my fear of heights, if I just put myself right into the position where I'm standing 100 feet off the ground, I would have to deal with that fear. When my anxiety goes away, then I have a greater chance of eliminating that fear. And again, the goal for the imagery process is to subside our fears and then work towards eliminating them. So there's that extra step before you can fully eliminate your fears. But again, depending on what our fear is and how extreme it is, the last thing you want to do is make that fear worse. So depending on what it is and how extreme it is, see if the Vivo or the imagery process will work better for you. And the last thing is, the absolute worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do is be in the situation where you're working towards eliminating your fears and then back out of it and just say, I quit. I can't do it. This is too much for me. This will increase your fear exponentially. The absolute best thing you can do is, if you back out of that situation, is to go right back into it. Because the lower amount of time that you have between you saying, I can't do it, to jumping right back into it, will lower the amount of fear that you have. I promise. This is why some people become so paralyzed with fears, because they back out of that initial situation and they don't look back. So now they're dealing with the fear of their initial fear, and now the fear of failing at it again. It's just terrible. So if you fail, put yourself right back into that situation, because it's the best thing you can do to conquer whatever fear that you have. So to recap, our fears are developed through a simple conditioning process where we're presented with something, we don't like it, we're not going near it ever again. And there are two different types of processes that we can use to get over our fears. The first one is the Vivo process, where we just jump right into the situation.
Just do it!
And we deal with it until our fear goes away. Or the second one, through an imagery process, where we start from the lowest to the highest level of anxiety and we imagine ourselves going through that situation. There are multiple advantages and disadvantages to these situations. With the Vivo process, the advantage is you jump right into it, you have a higher chance of eliminating that fear. But the disadvantage is if you jump right into it, you have a higher chance of further strengthening that fear. For the imagery process, the advantage would be you have a higher chance of subsiding your fear and dealing with it, but the disadvantage is you could never replicate a real life situation like you can imagining it in your head. So decide what process works better for you based on the fear you have, and then begin working towards conquering that fear. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you liked it. This was a really fun topic to talk about, because we all have fears, we all have stuff we're dealing with, and what's better than an actual way to get over those fears. And I'm gonna attach my Instagram to my YouTube bio. So if you have any questions based off your fears, what process you should use, how to get over them, shoot me a DM on Instagram, and we can talk about these things where you can actually take steps towards getting over whatever's bothering you. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a like. If you like my channel, subscribe. And please subscribe to my channel and share my videos with your friends and family if you feel like they can relate to the topics I'm talking about, can take something out of it. I feel like I'm putting out a lot of great content value-wise, where the stuff I'm talking about as far as the hows and whys and what to do could provide value to people, could help them further understand what goes on between their ears. And, maybe hopefully my goal is that you take something out of it where you can work towards. Let's get better together. Peace.